metaphysical body. And then we have the gross body, the one we are seeing now. So with the manufacturing of the subtle body, the ingredients are mind, intelligence, and false ego. And before this mind, intelligence, and false ego there was the spirit, or the spiritual aspect, which has to do with the soul and God. So before this matter, or this subtle matter came into being, the superior spiritual energy was existing. So it would be quite impossible for something which came before the latter, or could be able to explain that. I don't know, you get the point. Because soul was there, or the spirit was there before the creation started, which includes the mind, intelligence, and false ego. So the intelligence as we know it came later, and it is also material intelligence. So it wouldn't be able to phantom something which preceded his being, or its being. So our material intelligence will be nearly impossible, or I use the word nearly because we say the word impossibility is only found in the full dictionary. So we cannot use completely impossible, but you could say nearly impossible. Why? Because it is like 99.9% to be able to appreciate or understand the supramundane activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is almost impossible. But Queen Kunti in the purpose, the Prophet explained that, but the pure devotees, they have that refined brain tissues, they have that refined intelligence to somewhat be able to understand the transcendental nature of the Lord. So it takes only one who is pure-hearted. In the Bible, it is said, in the Bible, generally, people, especially from the Christian perspective, people usually think that God cannot be seen. Why? Because God is spiritual. And in the sense of it, the understanding of the Christian philosophy is that when we say he's spiritual, it means that he does not have a form. Therefore, he cannot be seen. But in the same Bible, they say that blessed are those who are pure in heart, for they shall see God. Does it sound contradictory? It is not actually. Because it takes some level of purity, some level of cleansing of the heart and mind, of the consciousness, to be able to appreciate that the Lord has a form, and the form also has some peculiar pastimes with which the Lord plays with his form, or that he enjoys to do. So although it may seem as if that the Lord God his activities are very difficult to behold, but then with purity, it becomes understandable. It becomes something that can be appreciated. That is why Prabhupada explained that, but those who have purity, those who are pure devotees of the Lord, they have that inclination to be able to understand the transcendental qualities and activities of the Supreme Personality of God. Sometimes people say, if you say there is God, then show me God. Because we say seeing is believing. So if I cannot see God, then God does not exist. But then as conditioned soul, they say that we have imperfect senses. Our senses are imperfect. They are imperfect in all regards. So how can you use an imperfect sense to behold the Supreme Perfect? It is not possible. But once one purifies the eyes, we remove the cataract from the eyes, and the eyes is anointed with the pulp of bhakti. It is anointed with the pulp of devotional service. Then it becomes cleansed to be able to behold the transcendental form of the Lord. And similarly, the brain, or the intelligence, when the intelligence becomes purified, then the intelligence becomes possible. It becomes refined enough to be able to understand the transcendental nature of the Lord. So without this purification activity, it will be extremely difficult for one to understand the personality of the Lord and also his transcendental qualities and nature. So therefore, in all respects, purity is required. That is why in his concept, Prabhupada used to say that preaching is the essence, but purity is the force. It's the purity which will propel us to the highest points of progress in this part of spiritual life. Without purity, nothing really lasts. Purity makes brings out the essence with which something is appreciated of. But without purity, like we know gold is appreciated by the level of how pure it is. Oil, all these, everything which is we know, it is appreciated, or its value is, it appreciates according to the level of its purity. So once we get completely pure, then we can be able to behold our Father. So it is not impossible to understand the nature of the Lord. It's not impossible to appreciate the form of the Lord. But then the only catch, what is required, is purity. Without that purity, it wouldn't be possible for us. So in the purpose, Shapopa said, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are not bewildering, but also apparently contradictory. In other words, they are inconceivable to the limited thinking power of a human being. Many of us, whatever we even thought of yesterday or just a few moments ago, we do not remember because our brain is that dull, is that weak, is that dumb. So actually, when somebody calls you a fool, and sometimes somebody will say you are a fool and you feel like you are being insulted, but that is a fact. This material consciousness, this material gross body is completely foolish. I mean, it is dead matter, it is dumb, it is deaf and dumb. Without a touch of the Spirit, it is completely useless. So we don't really have that intelligence to be able to perceive the Lord. Because Prabhupada would say, Prabhupada, I mean, he knew how to use words. He would say, poor fund of knowledge. Instead of you to say, Prabhupada saying that this is foolishness, or you will say, poor fund of knowledge. It means that your capacity to be able to assimilate is completely low. It's extremely low. Which is another way of saying somebody is a fool, but in a very gentle and a subtle way. So, I mean, who is a fool? When we say somebody is a fool, it is not actually an insult. It is a description. And a fool means one who does not know what to do, when to do, and how to do. And that is our situation. First of all, we don't even know who we are. Even talk less about knowing our Father, knowing God. We don't really know who we are as the soul. We do not. The funny thing that we see in this world is that most of us, we think we know. I think I know you. I think you know me, but you do not know me. Why? Because this body that you are seeing is just an outer garment. It's just a dress. But behind this body is actually the soul, which is actually the propelling elements, the one which is actually causing all these movements to occur. But in most of the cases, none of us actually perceive the soul. We are only seeing this body that we are seeing. And then what makes it more practical is that when you're staying with a friend, a relative, or whatever the person may be, the moment a person dies or he leaves his body, you say that the person is gone. Oh, my wife is gone. I mean, my child is gone, whatever. But then the child that you've been taking care of, the body that you have been feeding, it is lying there dormant. So what is actually gone? The soul, which is the essence, that of which we actually never knew. Talk less of even loving. So even if we want to have the ability to assimilate knowledge of the absolute, then we have to first have self-knowledge. We have to first have self-realization of knowing who we are as a soul. And without which it will be almost impossible to know something beyond it, which is knowing about God and His transcendental knowledge, His transcendental activities. So all these things we are talking about still require what we call purity. Without that purity, without that cleansing, it will be extremely difficult for us to have the realization that we need. So Srila Prabhupada continued to say, the Lord is all prevailing super soul of all existence. And yet he appears in the form amongst the boar and the animals, in the form of a human being as Lord Ram, Krishna, etc. So I remember during Nrsingadev Chaturdasi, Nrsingadev is the form of God, which is half man, half lion. People are like, whoa, how can you tell me this is God? I mean, he looks very ferocious. It looks like he's angry. I don't know who has pissed him off or whatever. And he looks very scary with multiple arms. And I mean, how can this be God? That is what we think. Because in our consciousness, we are thinking that when we say God, God is kind of, it looks like a very old man with a very gigantic body, with a white beard and white hair, holding a staff, sitting on some throne. That is sometimes the Western, how they portray God to be. But actually, God can be like that. He could also be whatever he wants to be. So God is somewhat, there is this term that we use to describe the Lord. Whenever we hit the point where we cannot go further, we say Achintia. God is Achintia. He is inconceivable. So sometimes we want to understand the Lord by our own material understanding or our limited material power. But then it is quite difficult for us to do that. But although we may try, it's within our ability to try, but it is not within our ability to succeed. Because the Lord is far, far beyond the scope of our material, teeny brain to be able to understand. Therefore, it takes the Lord's mercy to understand the Lord's mercy. And once you get that mercy of God, then one can be able to appreciate the presence of God within every particle of an atom. We realize that God and his energy is actually prevailing amongst all as the super soul. That his energy is scattered throughout the whole universe. But one will be able to have that realization. One will be able to come to that point only when one has attained the mercy of the Lord. Without that mercy, that will be extremely difficult and almost nearly impossible. So the Lord comes in different forms. As people are, we are bewildered when we hear the Lord has a form as a half man, half lion. He looks like a beast. Nor does he doesn't look like a human also. So what is he? And the Lord came as Lord Hayagriva, who was also taking the form of a horse, as Marcia, as a fish, as Kurma, as tortoise. He has different varieties of forms. He has a form of Rama, as Vamana, as a dwarf also, at the boa incarnation of the Lord. How many people can understand that the Lord even has a form as a boa? Because the boa is perceived as a very nasty animal, like the pig always go for dirty stuff and all that. So how can God have a form of a pig? So people are like, come on, this is too much to behold. You're exaggerating. How can? But then if he is God, and if he is the source of all these forms, including that of a pig, that of an ant, that of a cockroach, that of a frog, why can't he manifest those forms? But after all those forms came from his own creativity, his own ingenuity. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I'm the source of all material and spiritual worlds, including all material energies and spiritual energies. So if the Lord Krishna cannot manifest these forms, but he can create, then it wouldn't make sense. Just like people will say, God, Krishna is impersonal, God does not have a form. But if God can create a form, why can't he himself have a form? You cannot actually give something you do not have. So sometimes when you hear the statement that God has multi-dimensional, a lot of forms, it's actually said to be unlimited. So you continue to count that, the word we use etc. etc means that you can keep on counting. But when you are tired, then you stop. The Lord he is Ananta. His activities are unlimited. But that Ananta is also mixed with Ananda. It's mixed with blissfulness. So that it is not unlimitedly painful, but it's unlimitedly sweet. And the more it goes, the sweeter it becomes. That is the Supreme Personality of God. Therefore, his activities are extremely difficult to behold. You remember in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when the Lord revealed his universal form to Arjuna, Arjuna was baffled. This is too much, Krishna. I wanted to see, but I have come to the point this is too much for me to behold. Better you just take this away. I do not want this, but I want this your simple form as Shyama Sundara. Vasudev Krishna, with your two hands playing the flute. That is the form that is calling to my heart and my mind that I really want to appreciate, to say. So the Lord actually can take any form. The Lord, even as teeny condition shows us And they said that Jeeves have the ability to expand themselves, I think 7 or 9 times, according to Mystic Yoga. And even the other higher elementals who can shift, they can take different forms that they want. I mean, these are conditioned souls. So why can't the Supreme Lord assume whatever form he wants? It is common sense. So if the Creator's creature can do something that the Creator himself cannot, then what makes him the Creator? So Prabhupada continued to say, where is it? In the form of a human being as Rama, Krishna, etc. In the form of rishis, rishis means sages, such as Narayan, and in the form of aquatics like a fish, like Marsha, in the form of the Lord, Marsha, the aquatic form of the Lord. So you could understand that yesterday we read that the Lord is never partial. You understand? He not being partial means that he has a form as a fish, which the aquatics can also relate to him. He has a form as a beast, as a boa. He has a form as a bird, like Garuda is in his own expansion. He has a form as a human, as Rama and Krishna, this form that we are relating to. He has a form as a demigod, as Upendra, as Vamanadev. And all these he has deputed, he has expanded himself in all these different designations, just to give us a clear example that he is never partial to anyone. For we human beings, we say humanitarian. One is very humanitarian. Humanitarian means that we are very kind to our fellow human beings. We want to support our fellow human beings. We want to help our fellow human beings to advance. But what of the plants? What of the animals? What of the mountains? What of the other parts of the ecology or the ecosystem? What of them? So being a human or being humanitarian is not complete. Why? Because you still have to extend that love you have for the humans for the other creatures as well. In the Bible it says, love thy neighbor as thyself. Thy neighbor does not necessarily mean your next human being neighbor. It means the next ant close to you, the next fowl close to you, the next demigod close to you, the next whatever, cow, cat, tiger, whatever living entity which is next to us. We should give that living entity the same love which will equate the love that we have for our own selves. But the funny thing is that most of us don't love ourselves. So if we do not love ourselves, how then can we love others? We have depression, we have these anxieties, PTSD, all these funny clinical, psychological diseases that we're having. Why? Because most of us, we do not really love ourselves. Because you have to know yourself, you have to know what is love, then you can unite both of them. But we do not know who we are in the first place. We don't have any conception of what love means. So how can we love and then ultimately love ourselves, then even have the inclination of even loving God? So it is something which is not so cheap or so easy that we talk about. It takes some level of maturity. It takes blessings. It takes the mercy of the Lord to be able to have this understanding. Love is what is not so cheap. Sometimes we say that, and Prabhupada said, love me, love my dog. Love me, love my dog. That you cannot claim that, oh, my dear Lord, may hallowed be thy name. You are praying to God, claiming to be holier than thou, but forgetting your own brothers and sisters. You can only love them, and you can only love God and love him well if you love all his parts and parcels, which are other living entities as well. Therefore, the scriptures always promote the idea of non-violence. That if you really and truly want to love God, that love should not be centered amongst a particular species or a particular ethnic group, a particular race, a particular country, a particular gender. No, it should be something which is absolute. In all spheres, wherever circle that we find ourselves, that love should be given. So Papa continued to say, where is it? Yet he is unborn, and he has nothing to do. You know, sometimes we think that God is he's a busy man, always answering messages. We are praying to him, so he has to make sure that he has replied. Like most of us, we go through the anxieties of replying messages and replying writings, because you know you have stacked of messages to reply, so you're in anxiety. You have to, because if I don't reply this person, it's going to feel like I have snored or ignored him and all that. So we think that God is also going through that difficulty, that he has to reply everybody at the instant. So sometimes when we pray and it's not coming, it means we think it is in a waiting list, it's in a queue, because God has kind of a system with which it hasn't gotten to us. No, it is not like that. So although it seems as if his work is extremely difficult, it's extremely complex, but it is extremely simple also. So although the material creation and material activities are complex in itself, the Lord is still aloof. The Lord is playing with the copers. He is dancing with the gopis. He is enchanting and charming the inhabitants of Vrindavan. He is not really interested in seeing. Everything is working accordingly to his plan. He did not, personally be part of the whole activity. No, that is why he has depicted himself as Narayan. And Narayan has also depicted the demigods to act as administrators. Just like when you have any organization, the CEO does not, you don't really see him, or the shareholders who have very big shares in the company, you don't really see them even in the company. They're always going out there with a vacation, enjoying road trips and enjoying vacation with the family. But then the directors, the managers, the security guards, the receptionists, the secretaries, they are on the field working. So he is almost inactive in terms of managerial activity. But then he is still extremely active in his expansion as his part and parcel who are working on his behalf. So that is how, mind-boggling it becomes. But then if you look at this perspective, it is something that you can also appreciate. So in the Shruti mantra, it is said that the Supreme Brahman has nothing to do. Yes, what does God have to do? It is we are put in anxiety because we don't have control over time. Because everything is apportioned to us according to time, place, and circumstance. So we have to work accordingly, according to the time. But he himself is the source of time. He says, I am the source of all material in the spiritual worlds. He said, everything emanates from me. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, time, I am the destroyer of all material, all the worlds, of this material world, the full planetary system, the 14 planetary system. He is the source. And he is the destroyer of all of them. Therefore, he is not under the influence of time, but he actually influences time. And they said that the sun is always rising and setting. It is always mounting the wheel of time out of fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they said any time the sun rises into the atmosphere and sets, we begin to die. But any of us, do we kind of look at it in that conception that today we greet good morning, sir, good morning. But we do not know it is a mourning. We are mourning the sorrow of our demise because we have left the body we are having yesterday behind, and now we are having a new body. We're having a new chance. So it is a mourning. There's something which is worthy of lamentation. But we'll make it a very ritualistic activity. Oh, good morning, sir, good morning. But then, we are all dying actually. But the Supreme Lord is not really interested in all these complications of dying, giving birth, old age, disease, and all those things. It has no influence on him. Therefore, he's chilled. He's chilled. He's free from all the pressures of the material world. And sometimes the demigods, like we all of us, most people want to go to heaven. And in heaven, we do realize that sometimes Indra is in hot waters. The demigods are all they are in a dilemma. They have to run to Lord Brahma. And Brahma realizes this is too difficult for me to compromise. Even my forehead, I cannot think about this. So then he goes to Sritadrip, he goes to Narayan, and he meditates on the Lord within his heart. My dear Lord, this is our situation. if you do not intercede, then our life is over. So the Lord then has to give them some promise. He's going to come in the mature world to perform a specific activity to protect the demigods and all that. So you see, but then even in that activity, still he's aloof. When you go to Sweet Olive, the Lord is not, he's not like he's cooking chapatis or he's in the club or whatever. He's just chilled, he's sleeping. Ananta Shesha and Lakshmi Devi is massaging his foot on the ocean of milk. And Ananta Dev is singing his glories. Different multifarious hoods, all the hoods singing the glories of the Lord. And he is just chilled, he's just sleeping and enjoying himself. So this is how the Lord is inactive, although he's extremely active in his activity or in his work. No one is equal or greater to him. He has manifold energies, and everything is performed by him perfectly by automatic knowledge. This automatic knowledge is what we call nature. The three modes of mature nature and all its mechanisms. They have been programmed by the Lord. So everything is working perfectly. So the Lord and his activity, the laws of mature nature are working, although they sometimes may be imperfect. But then because they are being propelled by the perfect Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the so-called, hitches always falls into place. And then when it so happens that it becomes difficult, the Lord has to personally come. Just like when you set up your system and there is some faulty, you bring your engineer, then he will screw things up, you adjust things up, and then things work smoothly again. So, that is how the Supreme Lord does his activities. All these statements prove without any question that the Lord's activities, forms, and deeds are all inconceivable to our limited thinking power. And because he is inconceivably powerful, everything is possible in him. There is no question of impossibility with the Lord. Like I said, impossibility is a word found in the Fool's Dictionary. Oh, this is impossible. How can it be? How can God be like this? It is impossible. What is impossible? He is actually the word. He is actually the source of that word, impossible. So what do you mean? Impossible exists because there is a possibility. So Prabhupada said that impossibility is a word found in the Fool's Dictionary. So we cannot judge or trying to understand the Lord by this feeble mind or brain, trying to understand the absolute with this material mind of us. Therefore, like even in our AI, which is our AI, artificial intelligence, even we get bewildered by AI. Talk less of SI, that's supreme intelligence, who is the source of our intelligence, or he's the source of Brahma's intelligence. And Brahma's intelligence is also what we are seeing now. And we are also using that intelligence to create other artificial intelligence. So even with our AI, this so-called AI we are creating, we cannot understand how it works. It looks like it is almost a very complicated mechanism. So if we cannot understand it, how can we understand SI, that's supreme intelligence, with whom all these other things, all from his creativity and his ingenuity, everything comes into being. How could we? It's impossible. But it becomes possible by the mercy of the Lord. Therefore, no one can calculate him exactly. Every action of the Lord is bewildering to the common man. So it is said when the Lord moves, before he goes, he has gone. And as he's going, he is also there. And as he has left and is going, he's also where he has left from. So his movement is also bewildering. Because as, let's say, the Lord is traveling on a journey, as he's going, he has left, he's there. And as he's going, he's also there. And as he's going, he's also left where he is and he's still there. So how can I understand his movement? So it is only a fool who will say, why me? Because if God is all perfect and his activities are perfect, we should not ask, why me? We should ask, what are we doing in our lives which is making things complicated for us? We should not blame anything on God, or we should blame on our own, crazy mind. Therefore, no one, he cannot be understood by the Vedic knowledge, even the Vedas. The Vedas personified cannot even actually estimate or calculate the personality of God here. But he can easily be understood by the pure devotees because they are intimately related with him. Just like, when you have a high court judge, he might be seen as a very complex fellow, like everybody's afraid of him. He can give the most cruel judgments, like people don't really understand how his mind is working and all that. But when he comes home, he's very sweet with his wife, and he tells his wife everything which happened in the courtroom. Honey, what happened, this and that and that. I wanted to do the sentence to this, but I was thinking that it's better I give him this sentence and all that. The wife understands the whole mind of that complicated judge. Why? Because she is intimately related with him. So therefore, the devotees who are intimately connected with the Lord, because they have that spiritual connection, that spiritual pact is intact, that flow of energy happens. And therefore, the Lord bestows the intelligence and the mercy for them to be able to appreciate his activities. So it only takes a pure devotee to be able to appreciate the transcendental qualities and the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. The devotees therefore know that although he appears amongst the animals, he is not an animal. The point should be clear. Nor a man. Just recently, somebody was saying, why are you worshipping an Indian god? Because this god looks like an Indian. Why are you? So does it mean if the Lord is like the Lord has different incarnations like Kurma, like Marcia, like Harigrava? Why are you worshipping a Lord who looks like a horse? Does it mean that you are horses? It doesn't make sense. The Lord can have any form he wants at any time. So what if we tell you that God has Yamshama Sundaram? He has a form of a blackish rain cloud. So would you say, because I am black, therefore he is God? You see, so sometimes we use our material, mundane understanding to try to perceive the Lord, which is not the case. So he is not an animal, though he takes birth amongst the animals, or he assumes forms in the animal kingdom. Nor is he a man, nor a rishi, nor a fish. He is eternally the Supreme Lord in all circumstances. Hare Krishna. So we end the text here. If anybody has any questions or comments, please, you could feel free to ask. If there are any questions or comments. Questions.
How the soul goes smaller than the smallest. And we make the entire body. How
The soul smaller
than the smallest.
than.
And we make the entire body.
Yes, it is said that the soul is like 100th the tip of the hair. The tip of the hair, not just the whole strand of hair, but then just the tip, like putting full stop and dividing it into 100 sorts. And when you pick one amongst that, it might give you an understanding of the soul. But it gives an understanding that even with that, it looks like a very tiny whatever. But then the soul can only also expand to become as extremely gigantic as anything else we can ever see in this material world by the mercy of the Lord. So it is by the mercy of the Lord and its mechanism that the soul can become extremely infinitesimal. And the soul can also become extremely great or gigantic. The perfect example is Hanumanji. Hanumanji, when he entered Lanka, he entered as a very small little fly. But how did he come out? He came out as a very huge, gigantic hero, setting up the whole Lanka on fire. And so Sita Devi asked, so Hanumanji, what is your actual size? They said, my dear ma, personally I am so tiny. I'm infinitesimal speck. But then if the Lord wants, I can become extremely huge. So for the devotee of the soul can become extremely huge if the Lord wants, or for the service of the Lord, and he can become extremely tiny if the Lord wants. So the fact that we say the soul is extremely tiny does not mean that it is tiny in its activity. So just imagine if it is that tiny, see the power, see how it's able to cause this body to act. So, it gives us that understanding. So that does not also mean that it's being tiny means that it is so tiny. It has. But when one attains perfection, it has we assume our original form, that structured Ananda Vigraha form. So I mean, it seems it is said to be tiny and it pervades the entire body. Why? Because that tells us how creative the Lord is, how much of an engineer He is, that He can put such an infinitesimal energy, and it creates such a wonderful impact. So that is what I can say, though. Hare Krishna.
Next question. If God is unlimited, how can limited man fully understand him?
Yes, that is what we've been saying, that God is unlimited. So it only takes the mercy of the unlimited to understand the unlimited. So if we are limited, we cannot understand the Lord. But we can only understand the Lord according to how much the Lord allows us to understand Him. He's even actually said that even the Lord Himself, the more He tries to understand Himself, the more He expands. So we do not want to really understand who God is, where He is, no. But then how we can be able to serve the Lord. And once we serve the Lord in a very, loving way, in a loving relationship, then He will give us the intelligence to understand Him. He said in the Bhagavad Gita that I give intelligence to those who want to serve Me. So, of course, we are limited in all regards. Like I said, if we have the mercy of the Lord, we can understand the unlimited, though we are limited. But that mercy breaks that gap. So that is what I can say.
This is your contribution. I said, Krishna cannot be understood mainly by intelligence, scholarship, speculation, or debate. He reveals.
Yes. So He revealed Himself according to according to the level with which we have known to Him. The Lord will reveal Himself accordingly. I think we talked about something like this yesterday. Okay, so I don't know if there are any other further questions, comments. Let's see here. Let's record. We'll come back. Let's see. You don't want to miss me. Okay, seems like we are covered what we are meant to do. So we will end the class here. Thank you very much for joining. And see you same time tomorrow if you like. Or this knowledge we are sharing, this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, very ancient knowledge of the Absolute, which have been passed on generations. And now we have also gotten the mercy to share this knowledge to others. So you could share this knowledge to others as well. It is the same way as giving God to them. So we are very grateful for your time, for listening to this this Amrita or this nectar of the Bhagavatam. So thank you very much. See you same time tomorrow. I wish everybody a wonderful and blissful Krishna conscious rest of the day, wherever you're watching us from. Hare Krishna. Grant Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.